Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses as we continue with Part 3, The Secret Doctrine from the Lost Word, Its Hidden Meaning by George H. Steinmetz. Chapter 2, The Secret Doctrine. The secret doctrine, being the real secret of Freemasonry, is not divulged even to the candidate. There is no machinery set up in the ritual for the purpose, and the secret doctrine itself is not even acknowledged to exist. As evidence of the difficulty encountered even by a Grand Lodge when faced with the question, we quote from the report of the Committee on Masonic Information of the Grand Lodge of California. What facts, theory, or doctrine does the Grand Lodge expect the Committee on Masonic Information to inculcate? The Grand Lodge has not said. Obviously, it is not to teach what is in the ritual, for that is already thoroughly taken care of. What is the Grand Lodge's authorized and approved version of the history of Freemasonry? It has none except what is found in the ritual. What is the Grand Lodge's interpretation of the symbolism of Freemasonry? It hasn't any except the ritual. What is the doctrine of the Grand Lodge about the philosophy, religion, or principles of Freemasonry? Obviously nothing except what is already taught in the ritual. Therefore, if your committee circulates any information at all, it must be in addition to, subtraction from, or modification of the only authorized doctrine of Grand Lodge, viz., the ritual. Hence, we have the anomaly of a committee officially and solemnly authorized to disseminate unauthorized materials. Here is the difficulty clearly realized and acknowledged by this committee. Officially, the ritual is all there is, and no Grand Lodge will go beyond that fact and attempt to define the teachings of Masonry, nor will any Grand Lodge, to my knowledge, admit the existence of the secret doctrine, which is so openly discussed and written about by Masonic students and authorities on Masonic symbolism. This attitude itself might well be termed one of the mysteries of Freemasonry. The same is true of the landmarks of Freemasonry. Practically every jurisdiction in the United States enumerates different landmarks or accepts those listed by Mackey, entirely overlooking the learned discourses of Brothers Silas Shepherd and Roscoe Pound. The California Grand Lodge Committee, however, overlooked the outstanding and pertinent fact of Freemasonry. That is, it was never intended that the secret doctrine be divulged to the candidate. He is given but the exoteric explanation and the necessary clues whereby he may discover the right. But he is not given the right. He is given only a substitute. We are not referring to the substitute word, but to the entire explanation offered in the lodge, which in the monitors is quite frankly admitted to be but the rational account of the ceremonies of initiation. In other words, the candidate is given a plausible explanation. And if he is content with that and seeks for no more in Masonry, he has received all the value of Masonry possible for him. He has obtained all the rights, prerogatives, lights, enlightenment, and benefits, advantages, which can be conferred upon him in a lodge. Henceforth he must ask, seek, and knock. He must pray, do for himself. The lodge has completed its mission to the full extent of its obligation and original intention, that is to bring him that same way to the same level as all brothers and fellows have done who have gone this way before him. The secret doctrine in Freemasonry cannot be too strongly stressed. Firstly, because there are those in the order who in their lack of knowledge claim that it does not exist. Secondly, because the seeking Mason can gain no further light than is shed by the ritual itself until he starts his quest for the real secrets of the hidden mysteries of Freemasonry, and they are found within the secret doctrine. How important this is considered by Brother Waite is evidenced by the following. I have followed the secret tradition in its development through several paths within and outside of Masonry. That there is a meaning behind the tradition I am entirely certain, though it is of symbolism or allegory after its own manner and within its own measures, even as Masonry is. The great Book of the Zohar contains the whole doctrine of the hidden word and of the circumstances under which it shall be restored on the coming of Israel out of exile in the day of Messiah. Lest it be thought by some that we are attributing deeper meaning to Masonic teaching than exists, or was intended by its molders, we quote further from Brother Waite. It has been recognized throughout that there is a higher mind of Masonry, that a wider meaning attaches to its chief allegory than that which appears on the surface, and that the essential greatness of certain degrees and rights has been realized by few only of the multitudes who know them at first hand. The generally accepted theory is that our present lodges are the outgrowth of the operative lodges or guilds of the Middle Ages. There is no inclination to question the fact that our modern lodges, as organizations, owe their origin to these operative lodges. But what of the esoteric teaching? Are we to believe that these craftsmen of the medieval guilds, most of whom were actually illiterate, conceived an entire philosophy such as Freemasonry, and then, with consummate cunning, concealed it beneath a complicated system of symbolism and allegory? The obvious answer to the question is that they did not. Some Masonic authorities are of the opinion that the esoteric teaching and symbology was superimposed on the ready-at-hand organization of operative Masons by the gentlemen, the speculative Masons who were at the time being admitted to the operative lodges, men like Ashmole, Flood, and Bacon, who were students of philosophy. Some of them are also known to have been members of the Rosicrucian order. The similarity of modern Masonic and Rosicrucian philosophy is so marked that their mutual source is obvious to the student of symbolism and philosophy. Another curious link in the chain of circumstances which binds the Royal Society to the esoteric tradition is suggested by Hugh B.C. Pollard. We find in association with it, the Royal Society, not only Boyle but Sir Christopher Wren, Sir Robert Moray, Elias Ashmole, and Locke. These are not only the most important names in the early Royal Society, but also in English Freemasonry. Sir Robert Moray, who was the driving force behind the Royal Society, had entered the Rosicrucian fraternity in 1641 and was also the driving force in speculative Freemasonry. Prior to this period, we have no satisfactory trace of any Masonic organization other than purely operative or guild concerns. There is no trace of any person of quality in association with these minor guild mysteries. Yet between 1630 and 1660, we find people of social eminence, and it was a day when social caste rules were binding, enrolled in Masonic organizations. The Adepts, Part 3, Order of Universal Reformation, page 86. There is ample reason to suspect that modern Freemasonry was profoundly influenced by, if not actually the outgrowth of, Rosicrucianism and Bacon's secret society. Its symbolism is undoubtedly permeated with Bacon's two great ideals, universal education and universal democracy. Of Flood, Hall says, De Quincey considers Robert Flood to be the immediate father of Freemasonry. See the Rosicrucians and Freemasons. Arthur Edward Waite considers Flood as second to none of the disciples of Paracelsus, even going so far as to declare that Flood far surpassed his master. He further adds, the central figure of Rosicrucian literature, towering as an intellectual giant above the crowd, who directly or otherwise were connected with the mysterious brotherhood. The following is quoted from Hall's remarks regarding Sir Francis Bacon. No reasonable doubt remains that the Masonic order is the direct outgrowth of the secret societies of the Middle Ages, nor can it be denied that Freemasonry is permeated by the symbolism and mysticism of the ancient and medieval worlds. Sir Francis Bacon knew the true secret of Masonic origin, and there is reason to suspect that he concealed this knowledge in cipher and cryptogram. Bacon is not to be regarded solely as a man, but rather as the focal point between an invisible institution and a world which was never able to distinguish between the messenger and the message which he promulgated. This secret society, having rediscovered the lost wisdom of the ages and fearing that the knowledge might be lost again, perpetuated it in two ways. One, by an organization, Freemasonry, to the initiates of which it revealed its wisdom in the form of symbols. Two, by embodying its arcana in the literature of the day by means of cunningly contrived ciphers and enigmas. Evidence points to the existence of a group of wise and illustrious fratres who assumed the responsibility of publishing and preserving for future generations the choicest of the secret books of the ancients, together with certain other documents which they themselves had prepared. That future members of their fraternity might not only identify these volumes, but also immediately note the significant passages, words, chapters, or sections therein, they created a symbolic alphabet of hieroglyphic designs. By means of a certain key and order, the discerning few were thus enabled to find that wisdom by which a man is raised to an illumined life. We previously mentioned the mutual source of Rosicrucian and Masonic philosophy. What is that source? It can only be the ancient mysteries, the original source of all occult philosophy extant in the world today. It is asserted that the ancient mysteries, in harmony with the doctrine of the threefold man, had as their objective the bringing of man to an intellectual knowledge of his spiritual estate, that having cognizance thereof, he might develop the spiritual latent within himself, and eventually regain his original status as a spiritual being, conscious of his innate spirituality. The mysteries taught by parable, analogy, and allegory, and illustrated their teaching with symbols of protean meanings. One or more meanings were usually quite obvious and known to initiate and profane alike, with no attempt at secrecy. The more recondite meanings were known only to the initiates, and even these were expanded and amplified only as the neophyte advanced in his studies and was admitted to the higher grades, degrees. Insofar as we now know, the mysteries did not solicit membership nor attempt to proselytize. It is true they apparently taught morals and ethics to the multitude, inasmuch as the so-called pagan priests were initiates, and they promulgated the exoteric philosophy of the mysteries in their temples. But the initiation and esoteric teaching were exclusively for him who, of his own free will and accord, presented himself as a candidate for the mysteries. Only such were admitted as were deemed worthy and well qualified, of good moral and ethical standing, and of an intelligence capable of grasping the esoteric teaching, and then only after a due process of preparation. Upon admission, the candidate was instructed in the first grade, relative to the material and physical, taught of the material universe, his own physical nature, and his material relationship with the material universe about him. Having made the necessary proficiency in this grade, he was introduced to the psychical grade, where his instruction continued on a higher plane. He was acquainted with the philosophy of the mysteries, given a liberal education in the then recognized sciences, and finally reached a stage of enlightenment where he had a logical, intellectual foundation upon which to erect the superstructure of his faith and practice. The next grade dealt with the spiritual. Little is gleaned from the ancient writers relative to the higher grades, for all initiates were under solemn vows of secrecy. We can but surmise deductively what they taught by reviewing the teachings of the old philosophers, who are generally credited with having been initiates. While none have stated, "Thus taught the mysteries," it can be concluded that their philosophy derives from the mysteries. One anonymous writer describes his initiation into the greater mysteries. "Suddenly I knew as the gods, more cannot be said," Apuleius describes his initiation. "At midnight I saw the sun shining with a splendid light." Freemasonry is unique among modern institutions in that it is the only one which follows the ancient method of promulgating its teachings. Other institutions make use of symbols. Many teach by analogy and allegory, but it is left to Freemasonry alone to combine all methods in one system. It stands alone in the modern world as a school of philosophy which follows the practice of attaching multiple meaning to its symbols, the material and moral explanations of which are not secret, but whose recondite meanings are taught by degrees only and are expanded as the candidate advances. No acknowledged Masonic authority advances the claim that Masonry is a continuation of the mysteries, although many are agreed that the mysteries must be that mutual source of the teaching and philosophy of both Rosicrucianism and Freemasonry. Robert McCoy best sums up Masonic thought on the mysteries when he says, "It appears that all the perfection of civilization and all the advancement made in philosophy, science, and art among the ancients are due to those instructions which, under the veil of mystery, sought to illustrate the sublimest truths of religion, morality, and virtue, and impress them on the hearts of their disciples. Their chief object was to teach the doctrine of one God, the resurrection of man to eternal life, the dignity of the human soul, and to lead the people to see the shadow of the deity in the beauty, magnificence, and splendor of the universe." A study of the philosophy and teaching of the mysteries and Freemasonry discloses the correlation existing. Not only is this correlation evident between these two institutions, but the same relationship is obvious between them and the Hebrew Bible, when the allegory and symbolism of the three are compared and analyzed. It could not be otherwise, for both the mysteries and the Bible are but separate editions of the one great volume of ancient philosophy which preceded them. And Masonry has taken from the mysteries its unique method by which it teaches the philosophy of the Bible to its initiates. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment, and if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.